right, Fact Check This Podcast, and I am rejoined by Don to talk about the ways of the world. And the ways of the world series that we're doing is where we take different shit and we talk about the things that normies don't really understand with how the world works, and we break it down Barney style and explain the things that you're not getting. And tonight we're going to do it yourself dumbassery. There are Pinterest and YouTube reels and all of this other stuff have just completely ruined women in particular, but also just like young men who don't actually have any real world experience and want to try to do stuff for themselves. And it's a noble thing to want to do stuff for yourselves. But holy shit, let's take a break and pump the brakes and do it the right way on some of this stuff. So I'm gonna pull up some of the different stuff that you had sent as we go, and also we are experimenting with being back on YouTube. Although I just realized that I put this on the wrong one of my streams on YouTube. This is actually going on my morning show instead of my regular show, but it's okay. Since we're not talking about super controversial stuff these days.
Yeah. Every DIY ad on YouTube sucks. All right, we're banned. So as a completely accidental caveat to this, I listened to the composting stream earlier today, and if you want substantially better advice about composting than some of these various, let's be honest, they might as well be freaking memes, are going to demonstrate, go listen to that, because there's a ton of stuff in there that is, incredibly valuable, very easy, and very functional.
That's something that, and that's the reason that Dag and I are doing that series, is we want to show people, kind of like with this, breaking down the do-it-yourself dumbassery. We want to show people a good way to go about raising your own food and taking care of stuff and storing stuff. Like the first one we did was on properly setting up your storage for stuff, like how to set up a storage area and actually keep shit for, an extended period of time, so that you, in the event of something crazy happening, you have stuff and you don't have to like go over the top. Like there are some of the, it gets back to the do-it-yourself dumbassery. There's some of the like different things that say, you need to put like a drop of bleach in water if you're going to be storing water for. I was like, no, you don't have to do. That's completely unnecessary. Like as long as your water seals properly, as long as the container that you have it in seals mostly properly, you're not going to have a problem with mold getting in it or stuff like that. Like nothing that basic boiling it. If you have to store it for that long, basic boiling it will take care of anything that, like, there's no reason to put bleach in your fucking water. All right. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that the meme world will have you believe that you need to do if you're going to do all of this stuff. And it's
my favorite is the people who tell you that you need to do that kind of stuff when you water plants with it, right? Like you need to go get a stack of chlorinated tablets so you can just drop them in your 50-gallon drum for rain collection so nothing grows in it, all that kind of stuff. And I just, there's nothing to do but shake your head. Why would you do this? You're talking about putting it in plants. Oh, okay. You probably, shouldn't make a wood barrel that grows black mold that you pump into your plants. After that, you'll probably be, if you find a 50-gallon drum on the side of the road and scrub it down with soap and water, you'll probably be fine. But far be it for me to say so. And, I can already hear the comments too. What if they were storing hydrochloric acid in there? Like, yeah, okay, fine. Right. You're the one. You are the one person on earth that the piece of advice that you could find a 50-gallon drum on the side of the road and just scrub it out with soap and water is not going to work for it. Just you. Everybody else, this is fine. But for you, nope, don't do it.
And there's going to be some warning signs once you get into it. If that is the case, like if you are the 1 in a million person who happened to find the 55-gallon drum that they were storing toxic waste in, there's going to be some other signs before you get to the soap and water that will indicate that you should probably take a different track to this. Like
that little diamond on the side, it has important information on it. So
maybe we should do an episode on that, like identifying hazardous signs and symbols and stuff. Just in case, you get to that point. So here's I'm trying to decide which one of these. Okay, we're talking about the barrels and the drums and the jugs and stuff like that. This one is Dag and I touched a little bit on this last night. The problem with these little planters is, and you and I talked about it previously, in our private chat, doing a 5-gallon bucket garden is really not bad. It takes a lot of work. It takes quite a bit of upkeep, but once you got it established, it's good for growing shit.
Yeah.
You can also get a 5-gallon bucket from like anywhere for $1, or you could find them on the side of the road for free. Or like these little planter things, especially these little, whatever these
canvas sacks
are.
Right.
Yeah.
So
or these jugs, like,
so those water jugs, right? I have some because I have a well and I live in a place where the power goes out. So I keep, 20 gallons of water on hand. They're not cheap. All right. I bought them once and went, Jesus Christ, we're never doing this again. These things better last until I die.
Right. Like,
and a 5-gallon bucket is, with lid is $5, right? And the thing is, it is the same thing. It is unironically, go get a 5-gallon container, put dirt in it, and plant in it, right? And so if you're okay, for the 9 guys who work at a bottling plant where they throw these bottles away, right? And you're just standing there next to the trash can, throwing them in the back of your truck. Cool. You're the one. You're the one that this is good advice for, right? For everybody else, Lowe's, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, literally near, Ace Hardware. I don't care where you go. These things, 5-gallon buckets are cheap. And you do the exact same thing, except, by the way, it's already flat on the bottom. You don't need to make a base for it, right? Because it comes stock with a flat base.
Well, and the great thing is, like Lowe's, Home Depot, they all get like way too many buckets. If you walk into a Lowe's at the right time of year, there will just be buckets stacked up everywhere, and they'll be running them on sale because they get so many buckets in that they don't know what the fuck to do with all the buckets. It's like, where are we going to stack all these buckets? And so you just put them. I know I worked at Lowe's for a while. Like you just stick them wherever the fuck you can find a spot for them, and put a sign right over them that says bucket $1. Please take these fucking things. If you need lids, ask us. We've got those too. We've got more lids than we've got buckets because for some reason you don't get the same number of the thing. Like it's.
That is
really
exactly how I get my 5-gallon buckets is once or twice a year. You walk into Lowe's and there's a 6-foot tall stack of buckets, right? I just pick up the whole fucking thing, put it on a cart, and take it with me because I use these fucking things for everything, right? And your 6-foot tall stack of buckets is like $30, right? Which, by the way, it's 30 5-gallon buckets. Okay, I'm sold.
Right, that's what you're spending on one of these water jugs that they've got in this. Like, or these like sack bags, those things are not cheap either. Like you can get much cheaper material to make this same bed here.
Yeah, canvas is expensive for fabric, right? So keeping in mind that means those things are $10, $5, whatever it is you can find them for. But the thing about canvas bags is that they rot. All right. And okay, I can hear you already. Dodd, they're gonna last a year no matter what. And you're right. They're gonna last a year no matter what. Now, I live in the middle of the desert. If I put that thing outside, it is gone in 2 years. Absolutely. Even if I didn't fill it full of dirt and put a bunch of water in it. All right. It's just gone. And it's the same problem, right? Where you're taking what is already a good idea, what's already easy, you're making it harder, more complicated, more expensive, and then you're calling it a hack. And look, man, if that is the methodology, then can I suggest you go get 2-gallon tea jugs at a Walmart, right? And you plant in that. All right. Now you put some rock across the bottom. It's going to go real slow because they're glass, right? And then you pour your dirt on top of that. And that way, when you water, any excess water is going to collect at the bottom. You're going to have a little spout. You can open it up, right? And it's going to look super cool. And it's going to cost a fucking fortune.
Well, that's the the next picture that we've got of the cool Pinterest idea that's not nearly as practical as what they make it look. These things.
Well, when I first saw this, right, I was looking at this thing and I was like, oh yeah, hey, you're using water jugs for water storage so you can automate water feeding. And then I started looking at what they're using. And what they're using is medical tubing. It's got the stupid medical tubing clips on it, right?
It's
okay, it'll work.
It's like the amount of money that you've got invested into all of this stuff. You could have just put in like a professional system and not had, water bottles hanging all in your garden.
Right. And by the way, right on back to the 5-gallon bucket discussion, right? That's what is that? What are those things? Half gallons or something for the taller water bottles that they've got hanging over, and 1 gallons, right? So that's 2 5-gallon buckets. Now, I'll grant you, if you buy a ton of bottled water, this is at least something to do with those water jugs. Okay, fine. I'm sold. I don't buy bottled water, but I mean, other than 5 gallons because the well goes up, but I don't buy these individual bottled water. That's not a thing.
And like there is the chance. The one in the top right hand corner, those look like Hawaiian Punch jugs. I've got kids shit out of Hawaiian Punch. If you got kids, you probably have a bunch of those jugs. So,
sure,
practical repurposing for those. But, if you're having to go out and buy this shit.
Yeah. First of all, don't. Right. But, if you got to buy it, then just, again, buy the 5-gallon bucket because it's going to hold 5 gallons of water. Believe it or not, that is not a coincidental number. They call it a 5-gallon bucket. Right. So, okay. I'm all in for the hey, people buy bottled water. Hey, people buy, the high C, the fruit punch, all that other kind of, crazy nonsense. Okay, fine. Good. I'm happy to see it. Just for clarity's sake, 1 drip line would do what all of that stupid medical shit is doing. And you can buy one of those for, if you're talking like a 3/8 line, which is all you really need for this nonsense anyhow, $10, right? Now, maybe I'm just wrong, and that's 40 cents worth of medical tubing and accessories, but I don't think so.
Yeah, if you're getting medical tubing and all of that, all the little gadgets on it and stuff like that stuff doesn't come cheap.
Right. Though, by the way, once again, if you are one of the 9 guys who works at the medical supply company, and this is the excess runs that they're just throwing away, and you're standing at the dumpster, shoveling it into your truck, congratulations, you're the guy that this is a good idea for.
And I used to work at a company that we shipped a lot of stuff out on pallets. And so we would have used pallets all the time. And so for making pallets projects where you were making stuff out of pallets, I got a metric fuck ton of those things. I could just bring home as many pallets as I want every week, and I can make stuff out of pallets. If you're having to go buy pallets are fucking expensive. They're like $45 per pallet. And that's, that's the rebuilt ones. That's the refurbed ones. Like, they're not cheap. So if you're you see these pallet projects and these people are taking especially on the Pinterest videos, you can tell they're bringing in like a brand new pallet. Like, that thing was fucking expensive. You could have just bought the lumber probably.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's another thing. Okay. I'm not here to tell you that wood raised beds are terrible. We've been making them as a species for the past 100 years, and they work great. On the other hand, if you're just going to do that, if you're going to build a wood raised bed, go to local big box hardware store and just buy the cheapest crap lumber you can find and build it out of that. I don't care how cheap your 2x4 is. It's going to last longer than the 1x6 that is your pallet.
And that's we've got a little local hardware store here that they've just got a whole bin that's coal lumber, and you can get 2x4s, 2x6s, varying lengths. Just put that shit together. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, when we redid the house over here, I just went and bought a bunch of fucking coal lumber. Like, I'd go to Lowe's and they'll have like a just a big pack of coal lumber that's bent, bowed, twisted, that they've pulled out, and you can get the whole thing for very, very cheap, like literally pennies on the dollar. And so I just buy the coal packs, because everything that I'm doing, I'm going to be cutting it down. I'm going to be repurposing it for stuff. I don't need a bunch of nice, pretty 2x4s. I just need fucking wood that I can build it out of. And like, there's much, much more cost-effective ways to do it than these crazy Pinterest. How do you even get to the actual how-to part of Pinterest? Like, Pinterest is geared towards the woman brain. Like, you have to click this thing so that it gives you a link to this thing, so it links you over here to this thing, and then it's going to tell you a story about their grandmother's trip from Germany during the war, and then you get to find out how to actually make this fucking thing.
I've never made it to the end. I congratulate your ability to get to the part where they have actual instructions, because I have been to grandma's journey during the war. 2,741 years ago, my grandmother moved from Mesopotamia to Europe. And when she did, she found a tree, and Grandpa cut down that cherry tree, and he made this thing, and we've been making them ever since. I get about that far, and I'm done. Right? I do not care. I don't care how ridiculous of a story you want to tell. Which, by the way, as a side note, any DIY story that you, to almost immortal certainty, any DIY story you have ever read. We've been making this in my family for 600 years. No, they haven't. All right. Not a one of those things is true. My favorite are the ones who were like, yeah, we've been making this plastic thing for 600 years. Like, oh, really? You've been making something out of a material that's been around for a century, for 6 centuries, you say? Well done. I guess we should have been looking to you.
That was back when they were drilling for their own oil, and
right.
They had the do-it-yourself oil processing plant in the backyard.
Yeah. Well, it's the Milwaukee family, and so they just had their manual power drill. They didn't share with us for the next 500 years, and they were out there hand drilling a well with that.
Maybe they weren't hand drilling the well. Maybe they were harnessing the amazing power of streams to do it for them. I know this video really. We're gonna make some hydraulic turbines out of all kinds of fun shit, and these are gonna power everything, like literally everything you could ever hope for.
So this one right here, this is the one that got me to send this thing to you, right? Because this is so fucking ridiculous. Like, the one in traditional fashion, there's no instructions for any of this. It's just like, oh, hey, look, this creates power. Okay, well, fine. But, or no, is this the one with instructions? Damn it. Oh, well. But no less, the one where they just throw the turbine blade into, I don't know, it looks like some sort of NID ditch or some nonsense like that, right? So I don't know how many of you know this, but if you rub plastic on concrete, it works like sanding. All right. So it's just, as soon as he threw that thing in there, I was like, so you're going to do something to stabilize it, right? Nope, just throw it in. It'll be fine.
That's like, to add to the insanity of this whole thing is like they're trenching this thing out and they're going to divert water flow and like, oh my gosh, there are so much more efficient ways to go about doing something than all of this. Like, I mean, it's impressive. It's amazing. Cool. Yes. Great. But like none of this is do it yourself practical, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but hey, look, man, if you have flowing water on your property and you're going to divert, 1 square foot worth of it so that you can have a little dam that has lights in the middle of the property that you can't see from more than 5 feet away, and that's very important to you, this video is here to help.
Well, and that's the thing is like you're not generating. So people have to understand the reason that a dam works the way it works is because of the sheer volume of water that's going through it. Like you're not generating that much water with your little stream diversion. Like you're, when it shows the there it is, the fan where he's running the fan off of this thing, like
it's pretty much tapped.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Like as you can see, the fan is not going full speed. Like that's it. That's all this has got. Like, so it's impressive. It's cool. Like, yeah, you might be able to burn a light bulb, but like, why? Like,
yeah.
The only reason you would burn the light bulb in that case is to light up the area enough so you don't step off into the ditch that you created.
You just dug.
With. Like, it's neat. It's cool stuff. If if your son is a Boy Scout and you want to do something like that, cool. But like none of this
is helping you.
Right. A lot of the do-it-yourself stuff is not super practical. And I gotta tell you, I had power run to this barn or this garage. Like there was no power running to it, and I just had full power. I've got I got 110 in here with the option for 220 if I want to hook up 220. All together to have the line run, the meter put in, everything, even there was some wiring that had to be done that I wasn't 100% positive where all of those lines terminated, and I didn't want to terminate myself, so I had an electrician do it. All together, about $3,400. Like,
yeah.
How much are you spending on time and materials to dig this ditch, put all of this concrete in there, all of the plastic piping that they're getting and stuff, and it's like,
which,
man,
by the way, if you've never bought PVC, specifically new, it's fucking expensive. All right.
Yeah, that stuff is not cheap at all.
But what is truly amazing is that the various people who are aware of what I am working on doing on this property are also very aware that I'm trying to do a lot of stuff that is real low impact on power. And part of the reason for that is I just don't want to lay 2,000 feet of copper. Because if you've never laid that much wire, 1, it's very time consuming, and 2, it's very expensive. And so if I can get away with only needing, 100 watts or something, there's a lot of ways to generate 100 watts. Now, here's the thing. I need to do that more than once, right? Because if you've got 100 watts, we're right on back to you can power a light bulb, because that's 60. And after that, you're like a CPU fan and you're pretty much done. All right. So, okay, yes, there is some hypothetical use case where if you're doing low enough power shit that maybe these sorts of things are useful. But if you're going to do that, 100-watt solar panels, like $50. They come in a little pack from Harbor Freight that they already have the inverter attached to them. Right now, if you've never bought brick, which is the thing that he is using there, and again, you work at a brickyard and for some reason they're just throwing a bunch of that shit away. Okay, cool. You're the one. You're the guy. But mortar is not particularly expensive, $5 for like 80 pounds or something like that. But the bricks are like 75 cents, $1.50 a piece.
Right. A pallet of bricks is not cheap.
And so if you're going to do this to any practical, usable scale, right? That PVC is another, I don't know, it depends a little on what precisely they're using for size, but it's probably $50, right? And if you're real lucky, you're getting 100 watts out of this thing. You could have walked into Harbor Freight, picked up precisely that, 100-watt solar panel. Okay, solar panels are fake and gay and dumb. But if you need 100 watts in the middle of nowhere every now and again, they're perfect. So, no time wasted. You can duct tape it to something for all I care. It'll be there.
Dig a ditch,
right?
Which didn't have to divert water flow.
Right. Which, by the way, in the world of things where these DIY stupid things are going to cause you a ton of problems, if you dig a nice squared out ditch like they have in the back of that thing, and you run water through it, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to go like this. All right, it's just going to fall in.
Yeah, it doesn't. Those things don't hold up unless you're going through and you're adding more concrete to it, and in which case that's more money, more time, more like you are dedicating way more resources to making this thing practical than what is ever going to be necessary. I found the part of the video with your favorite little contraption where they drops this thing in the water and just lets it run as it bangs against the side and
first thing it does, right into the concrete.
And you can't control the water flow for it to not do that without securing it somehow. Like you can't just let it free float like that. Like anybody that understands how water flows and how things that you drop in water flow, they're going to go somewhere unless you found a way to secure it.
Well, I mean, in his case, right, you could have thrown 2 stakes, run some cable between them since he's apparently got all the spare cable hanging around, and then put a cable clamp on it, right, which is just, it looks sort of like a padlock, right, and you just wrench the thing down, but it creates this little U-bolt that's just out in the open, and just attaching that guy to the cable and then running the other cable through it would have held it in the middle of the stream. But instead, you're going to do all this bullshit that he's doing right now so that you can have this thing fall apart in a couple weeks. Like,
right.
I don't know what life you guys are living that you could do this every couple weeks.
This is just plastic. Like as soon as it makes contact with that concrete, it is now instantly breaking down. And it'll wear itself out pretty quickly.
And it's, again, this, by the way, it looks like he's using, like Schedule 80 here, which, by the way, if PVC is expensive, Schedule 80 is like, sell a testicle for that shit. And again, I guess if you're the guy that just has, I don't know, you work on a electrician's job site or something, and they're just throwing away a ton of Schedule 80, then fine. But if you're going to do that, again, just stabilizing it in the middle of the water would have made this thing even remotely practical.
Oh man, he ruined his Jenga set for some. Look at that.
See, that's just a waste. What are you doing?
Wow. And I mean, again, like this is all really cool if you've got a kid that's in Boy Scouts and you're wanting to do some, cool stuff and learn about how this stuff works. But if we're talking about like, practical use of this sort of thing in any sort of a situation where you need to power something, this is like, there are so much better ways to go about doing it than this. Oh man, it just keeps getting better. Like the further the video goes, for those who are like listening, for those who are like listening to the audio only of this later on, like you're gonna have to go over to either YouTube or Rumble and check out the video and check out this part. Like the further he goes with this contraption, the more
ridiculous.
The more insane it gets. Like the the amount of time and effort and parts and everything else that would go into this. Yeah, as Jay Forte says in the comments, this erector set convention sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
like, what are we doing? And I mean, it's okay, it's cool, he did it, but like, what's this thing gonna power? Like, what are you powering off of this? It's
Well, isn't this the thing that he ends up powering the fan off, or is that something else? But
I thought that was the next one, was what he was powering the fan off of.
it might be. But and again, I don't. Maybe you're, for some reason, you don't want to get those stupid automated powered lawn lights, and you're trying to run a light string down this, and I don't know, you're going to do it with LEDs and like the most ridiculous use case possible. Maybe this will do. All right. It's a big maybe. And even if that's the case, we're already grinding the end off this thing because we didn't stabilize it to the center of the water somehow.
Right. Like, I mean, as soon as this thing starts spinning, it's already banging against the side. The chains are not appropriately tensioned for that. They're going to end up giving you problems. Like, you're not running this thing more than a couple days before you're getting massive problems out of everything about this setup.
See, what is he measuring there? So I think he wants us to believe that he's getting 22 amps out of that. I mean, I guess at like 1 volt, that's probably true. And 19, 20. And it looks like, no, he's got that on volts.
Yeah, he's got that on
okay.
volt.
So he's getting 20 volts out of this at 1 picoamp. So
like, again, like there are so much more cost-effective and efficient ways to go about doing something like this, that if you're doing a DIY project, then you want it to actually be practical. Like, because that's what I'm trying to focus on this year. Is I want to talk about like ways that you can do shit to make yourself more self-sufficient, to understand how things work and why we do things the way we do them on our farms and in our gardens and, with our animals and everything else. And like, when you find these do-it-yourself projects, you should really be asking questions. Like, is it worth it? What is going into this? Why does it look so cool? Because I guarantee you, if you grew up on a farm, the do-it-yourself shit, it does not look cool. It looks like some retard just banged something together with a fucking ball peen hammer. And you know what? It's gonna work. It's gonna work perfectly. Like, it probably shouldn't look good if you want it to be practical.
So it like most things, if you're doing most of this DIY stuff, you're probably not doing it for the 1,000th time. Otherwise, you just stop calling it DIY, right? It's just a thing you do. And the 6th, 7th, 10th one is where it starts to look pretty good. Because the first couple of them you put together and you go, well, it works. And after that, you figure out whether or not it needs to look good. And chances are good you come to it looking good faster if you're married. Because, when the wife walks out and goes, why is whatever the fuck this thing is here looking like this? Well, yeah, I guess we could just put some plywood over that shit and paint it.
Yes, the most amount of money I'm going to spend on any do-it-yourself project is to make it aesthetically pleasing enough that my wife doesn't complain about it. Like,
exactly.
That's the extent of it. That's the only time that there's no practical application for what I'm doing with it, is if I just need to make it look good enough that my wife doesn't question what it is.
Yeah. Go find her favorite color and keep 5 gallons of paint of that color on hand, so that like there's just this giant twist of wire. Yeah, but it's pink.
So I completely gutted and renovated our house that we live in currently. Like, we moved up here and we just spent 3 or 4 days demoing the whole thing out. We just tore everything out and put it all in a big pile on the living room floor. And then I had a dumpster brought in and just loaded it up, had them come pick it up and loaded it up again until we got all the shit out. and then I could start. And there would be times where she would walk into the house and she would go, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Just calm down. It's not finished. Like, when it's done, it'll be fine." And then, when it's done, it's still the exact same thing. I just put something over to cover it up so that she couldn't tell what it looked like underneath. But, it's patchworked in, and it's all very practical, and it works. And we've got a very, very nice house. Like, you walk into it, aside from a couple of places where I really suck at lining trim up in corners. Other than that, you couldn't tell that it's, not well done.
Have you seen professional trim guys lately? You're probably fine.
The trim is my least favorite thing, but it's one of those things that when you're building your own house or renovating your own house and doing stuff, like being handy and knowing how to do stuff and being able to cobble shit together. Same on a farm for stuff you're doing. Like, sometimes the weld is not going to look pretty, but it doesn't need to look pretty for the use. It needs to be good. It needs to hold, which we talked about some on the last episode that we did.
So welding, we should discuss DIY welding videos. I don't have one handy, but you have probably all seen them by this point because they're a modern art masterpiece. Every single one of these jerk offs that performs a tack weld in a microsecond when it flashes in front of the camera for just a second. There's no sparks, no nothing. They just tap that little guy on there. There's a heat spot, right? That weld will hold, give or take, 1 to 5 pounds. All right. So if you are, as so many of these people are, like bending rebar because they made, a rebar bender out of these little teeny tack welds, like that thing lasted just long enough to get the video done. And after that, the next piece of rebar they bent ripped that thing to pieces. All right. Please, for the love of God, do not learn welding from crappy DIY videos on the internet. You will be disappointed, and probably catastrophically so. I'm not a huge safety guy. I hate safety equipment of every variety. We have finally reached a point, much like, don't put the gun in your mouth kind of safety, that don't do this. All right. Please. I'm begging you.
And anything with metalworking and stuff like that, like, take the safety side of it seriously. Like, if you're using a torch, if you're cutting stuff, if you're welding stuff, like, take the safety side of it very seriously. I got a nice scar up here on my shoulder where I was just blowing slag out, and I was cutting up aeration in a grain bin, and I was just blowing slag out and trying to get everything cut up real quick, and a big glob of slag hit something that I had not cleaned out properly and ricocheted off and landed on my shirt, and I felt something hot on me, and I reached up and just smacked it. And when I got home, my then wife, I went to take my shirt off to get in the shower, and she goes, "What's that on your shoulder?" I was like, "I don't know." And go and look in the mirror. It had melted my shirt into my skin. Like, we had to, like, dig it out. It was gnarly. Like, take your safety side of stuff seriously. Like, actually take the time to do that stuff right. The do-it-yourselfers on that stuff, they're like, "Oh yeah, we can just, like, here we go." Like, no, don't fucking don't scald your eyeballs out, please.
So look, I don't have enough welding equipment, right? Specifically mass and things that I can have like 10 people standing there welding. And occasionally that sort of shit comes up. So yes, putting your hands over your eyes works just fine if you're 20 feet away. All right. Feel free. Guy welding on the other side of the shop works great. Do not be 2 feet away from the guy welding and put your hands over your eyes. It's a bad idea.
And just for general safety on that, be aware of flash and stuff. Like, if you are wearing a welding hood and there's somebody behind you, put up a curtain or something. I've got a buddy that he got more or less, it was like 2nd-degree burns to his retinas because he was welding on one side and there was a guy welding behind him, and the flash from what that guy was welding hitting the inside of his shield burned his eyes. Like, he didn't even realize it was happening because he's welding what's in front of him and doesn't notice that flash hitting him from behind. So, you know, be aware of your surroundings and stuff like that. But yeah, the do-it-yourself welding videos and stuff, like, look, there are plenty of real resources out there that can teach you how to do this stuff the right way, instead of, like, especially where welding is concerned, quick and easy is going to fail every time.
Yeah.
There's no quick and easy way to weld. Like, you have to do it right. Otherwise you end up with a 24-hour freight or aircraft carrier that, you know, is barely held together. Yeah, like, learn to do that shit the right way. Do it yourself videos they're good for ideas, but I don't think they're good for actually, like, implementing
practical use. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, like, to the garden, right? You know, and all the medical tubing and all that kind of stuff. When I was a kid, when they moved to plastic Coke bottles, there was a thing where you take the Coke bottle and you just stab a hole in the cap, you fill it with water, and you slam it down real hard into the dirt. And because of the back pressure of the air, it will slowly water. You know, and hey, look, if you're the kind of person who is going through 20 gallons of Coke a week and you're buying, you know, plastic bottles, then yeah, this is great, right? It's a great, you know, neat little trick for, you know, you're going to go away for a couple of days and you have houseplants. Cool. Go get your 1 liter bottles, your 20 ounces, right? Stab a hole in the lid, jam it into the dirt, leave it alone. By the time you get back, your plants will be watered. Everything will be fine. Life's good. There are practical applications for a lot of these things. On the other hand, right? Don't buy $100 worth of medical tubing when you could just jam the bottle into the dirt.
Well, that's like the for that in particular, like, the problem that you're gonna run into with, I guess, just the bottle jammed in the ground is eventually it's going to run out of water and you're going to have to either cut a hole in the top and fill it back up, but that's the same thing that's happening with that whole contraption that they had strung up. Like, you're going to have the same problems with all of that cool bullshit as what you're going to have with just sticking the bottle in the ground. And there are ways to set up, I wish I'd found one of the, like, videos or the tutorial things of the do-it-yourself water collection. If you're in a part of the country that's legal, anyway. You know,
not California.
Check your local regulations that don't want you to get thrown in jail for collecting your own water by any means, or for collecting rainwater. But, like, I've seen some of these do-it-yourself rainwater collection contraptions, and it's like they're buying these, like, heavy-duty plastic jugs and stuff, and, like, all of this stuff, and again, like, PVC piping and things to guttering systems to collect it. And it's like, holy shit, there are, like, way more simple, basic, effective means of going about doing this without spending $1,000 on all of your supplies and stuff.
Yeah. No, the real popular one is the 2 blue 50-gallon drums, right? And you stick them next to each other. You connect them with PVC, and then you plastic weld them to the PVC to the drums because you just cut these holes in them. You run another 3-inch line of PVC up to your collection point for your your drainage system off your gutter system off your house. And so, and then, by the way, you build a table out of 4x4s and 2x6 to hold this thing so that it's up at waist level. Now, look, we can argue about what any given piece of that might cost or how effective or worthwhile it is, but the drums themselves are $100 to $200, depending on almost exclusively on type of gear, right? So, okay, you can, if that's what you want to do, I guess. Again, if you're one of these people that is picking these things up for free somehow, and look, I don't rule that out. I live next to a bunch of farms. They buy a ton of this shit and then just throw it away. So yes, I have a bunch of them because they throw it away, and I have a truck, and so they throw it away into my truck, right? And okay, that's probably a substantially more practical thing for me to do than most people just because of that. And so there is no time ever where I would go, so as a great, DIY idea of just using garbage you have lying around, this garbage that I have that none of you have, if you had it, this would be super cheap. On the other hand, I guess maybe we should understand that some quantity of this is the hipsters having grown up and gotten jobs where they get money, and so they do stupid kitschy shit. And if you want to do that, by the way, you can pay me to do it. All right. I will charge you $800 to come to your house for 25 minutes and set this thing up. The table will basically be built by the time that I get there. That's fine. I'm available. I'll take your money. On the other hand, you could just not do this. All right.
Especially where the water collection thing is concerned. Like, there are much simpler, easier, less expensive ways to just pipe water off of your, like, if you're using existing gutters, there's a much better way to do that without buying all these jugs and stuff. Like, you can get stuff that, 5-gallon buckets, they work great. You can just fill them up and then store them. You don't have to, like,
Yeah. And look, if you're really attached to the idea that you need 100 gallons, right? So 20 5-gallon buckets is worst case scenario, $100 with lids, right? Same thing that you're talking about, cost of one of those things. Stack them right on top of each other. You're going to be plastic welding all this kind of stuff anyway, because you're apparently good at that. Unlike literally everyone else who's ever plastic welded anything.
Right. I say there are people who are good at plastic welding.
You're right. And so, you're going to do that. So fine, just stack, 10 of them on top of each other on the side of the house. Go cut your drain pipe. So it does the curve for you right onto the top. Put a little screen on there, plastic weld that on there too. Have at it. And when you're done, you'll have your 100 gallons of water sitting around. It'll cost you less than half the price, and you won't have had to build the stand. I don't know. It's up to you, man.
And it's all in 5-gallon buckets. So now it's like, with lids, it's portable. Like,
yeah.
Have you ever tried to pick up a 5-gallon bucket of water? They're not light. A 100-gallon jug of water, or 100-gallon, the 250-gallon jugs of water. Yeah, you're not picking those up. Like, go ahead and just. That's why you had to build your table out of 4x4s and 2x6s, because if you built it out of 2x4s, it would crumble under the weight of what you're putting on it. So
yeah, that 100 gallons of water is 700 pounds, right? 7 pounds a gallon, give or take, is what water weighs. So just pick up that 50-gallon drum of water, 350 pounds, throw it on your shoulder, do a couple of squats, right? Because you're the kind of person who believes this is a good thing to do. So I believe that you can squat 350 pounds. I really do. And so, just do whatever you want with it, right? It'll be fine. What could go wrong? If you do that and you get injured, it's not my fault. I take no liability at all for you being a moron trying to squat 350 pounds as, an office going twig that thinks this kind of nonsense is a good idea. All right.
I miss the days when I squatted 400 pounds.
I miss the days when I could squat.
Gosh, got any other fun do-it-yourself stuff that just like really infuriates you? The water collection one, the rainwater collection one, is the one that always, like, every time I see one of those, I'm just like, oh my God, kill yourself. Like, don't do this. This is so stupid. Don't do that.
Yeah. Oh man. So right along the same lines, if you see a DIY video that includes an angle grinder, please just close it. All right. We could start there. That advice will save you thousands of dollars, probably an eyeball, maybe both.
How many people do you think watching a do-it-yourself video are actually like even competent with an angle grinder, much less proficient enough with an angle grinder to, like, I've got a background in metalwork. I don't even like messing with angle grinders that much. Like,
so I do a ton of angle grinder cutting. And because of that, I'm very aware of, like I do very tiny metal work, so angle grinder is 90% of what I ever need, right? I watched a guy in a DIY video take one of the super thin cutting blades for an angle grinder, turn it on its side, and start polishing steel with it. And I was like, "You're gonna die! You are minutes from death." And if you don't know why that is the case, there is a disc you can put on an angle grinder that you can do that with. Still not a great idea, but you can do it. Right. And it is a 1/4 inch thick. It is a big, ugly, meaty bitch. Right. These things are 1/8 of an inch. I'm being kind of generous, right? They're scrawny little things. They're for making nice, precise as you're gonna get with an angle grinder kind of cuts. And they work great. If you turn them on your side, you're putting steel on the very, very weak part of this thing. And in the exact opposite of a DIY video, I got sent a video a while back of a dude. He's got an angle grinder in his hand, and the blade is just shattered, right? And the camera's shaking. He turns it around, and it's stuck in his hat. All right. Now, you don't want to be in that position. That's all I'm saying.
It's like, think of this card grade paper. It's not super thick, but it's thicker than regular paper. If I push it against, if I push that against me, good. It's not, it holds pretty well. It's card grade. If I push on the side, it does that shit. When you take those angle grinding blades and you start pushing on their side, they do that shit, and then they fly apart, and then you have shrapnel. You have created a grenade right in front of your face.
Oh yeah,
it's not super intelligent.
No, and look, if you are one of the people who particularly needs to watch this series of videos, you've probably never picked up an angle grinder, right? But I promise you, the first time in your life that you pick up an angle grinder and you push that paddle back, you are going to know for a fucking fact that the whole thing you're holding is dangerous, right? Because your hand is going to start vibrating because you're not used to holding an angle grinder. All right. And it's going to be this kind of feeling, a little bit of that jerking off feeling. And as you listen to it spin up, I promise you the idea of that blade exploding is going to be terrifying, and it should be.
That's the first thing you should do. As soon as you see a do-it-yourself video that requires an angle grinder, just go watch a video of blades on an angle grinder exploding.
Right. Like, angle grinder fails. Boom.
Yeah.
You're going to have, it will be educational.
That'll give you all of the, like we talked about, making sure you're using your safety stuff properly when you're doing the welding and cutting and stuff like that. Same for using an angle grinder. Like, this thing is moving incredibly fast, and if something comes flying off of it, it's also moving incredibly fast, and it's not stopping you.
Don't be the asshole that takes off the shield. All right. Yeah. Okay. If you're one of the 9 people that does something with the use case where you have to take off the shield, good for you. You're also not listening to this for advice on what to do. But for all the rest of you, don't take off the shield. Leave the shield on. Point the shield at you, right? Because that angle grinder blade is probably not going to cut through it. Very unlikely. And it will literally save your life. So point it at you, because you want the big piece of steel between the shrapnel and you. Promise. That's why we have tanks. That's not even a joke. It's just a big piece of steel between you and the shrapnel.
Anything that you could put between you and the thing that could kill you is going to be beneficial, and you don't want to take that away. Like, that should be there. It's and it's amazing how many times on these do-it-yourself videos that you see they'll take this stuff off. It's like, wait, where are all the things that should be there? Like, if the regular, just average dumbass is watching this video, they're going to fucking kill themselves, or at least maim or injure themselves. Like, so take some time, do some research before jumping into any kind of a DIY type of a thing. It boggles my mind how frequently you see these things that it's just like, who thinks this is a good idea? Like, what's
this right down the line of angle grinders and making stuff and bad ideas. Look, There are a lot of good repurposing uses for saw blades. Please stop making knives out of them with your angle grinder. Please. Please.
What?
There is a whole subsection of the DIY world who thinks it's a super good idea to take table saw blades and make knives out of them. And okay, but also please don't.
Wow, I haven't stumbled upon that, and I'm glad I haven't. That's impressively scary.
Look, man, if you need a little tiny piece of sheet metal or something, it turns out saw blades are pretty tough. They'll probably do the job. On the other hand, first of all, if you're the kind of person who's going to make a knife out of your saw blade, you're probably going to do some shit like throw it. And that is going to go very wrong. All right. Now, I know that because if you think it's a good idea to make a knife out of a saw blade, you probably have no idea about things like balance. So when that thing does something that seems physically impossible, you did this to yourself. All right.
Wow, I'm glad I hadn't stumbled upon that horror show.
So there's a couple of web pages that my ad block doesn't work on, and since I buy and equally search a bunch of things on hardware store websites, which, by the way, if you want to find out how to see all these terrible ads, this is how. You go and just type into Google once ever Lowe's or Home Depot, right? And then for the next month, you're going to be getting DIY videos just about everything under the sun, every single concept that you've ever even thought of, and 50 that you haven't, right? And I have to assume these things seem like great ideas to people because there's tons of people who are like, man, have you that very obviously have never worked with their hands that send me these things and say things like, man, have you seen this? Like, I would never do any of that, and neither should you. Right.
It was interesting working at Lowe's where you'd have people come in and they'd be like, can you help me find this? I want to get this and this and this, and I'm going to put it together and I'm going to make this thing right here. And they'll show you like the little thing I'm like, don't do that. Come here and buy this, and that'll do everything you want to do for half the cost. Like, don't bullshit. The thing that does exactly what you want to do for $50 over here. Like that, but it doesn't occur to them that the thing might actually exist. Like this is some magical thing that you found a DIY for that nobody else ever came up with, and you're going to make this cool contraption that'll like we literally carry it. Come over here. Let me give you the thing that's already assembled.
Oh man, there's tons of stuff that applies to, right? Which, by the way, in the world of probably the best, DIY advice that you can ever get is whatever video you watch that does whatever cool thing that you're looking at. Go walk up to, ideally, you don't go to Lowe's anymore and you don't go to Home Depot because most of those guys don't know shit. But sorry, Lowe's and Home Depot guys. I like most of you, but you don't know shit. And so go to local hardware store where there's a guy with gray hair and a coffee cup, right, at 5 p.m. and ask that guy if there is a thing that does this. Now, what he might tell you is that you have to go to Lowe's or Home Depot and ask for this name, right? And then all I want you to do, you're only going to need to do this once or twice, so don't expect this to be advice that you have to live by forever because it's a huge waste of time. Go look at the price tag of that thing, find out how much it is, and then get the parts list for your DIY video nonsense and just compare prices. And very quickly, what you're very likely to find is that you're about to spend 6 hours to pay double to do a thing that you could have bought off the shelf for half the price. Okay.
Yes. And if you are just going to Lowe's or Home Depot, find the old dude that looks like he's been there for a long time. Like because he probably has, and he might actually, like every Lowe's and Home Depot has one of those guys.
The guy that's been working there since the 80s.
Yeah, the guy that's been working there since he got out of high school, and he knows everything about everything in the store. In fact, he does most of his own shit himself around his house with stuff that he gets with his Lowe's or Home Depot discount. He can help you and hook you up. Or you might get lucky and find like some redneck like me that happens to be working there because you just happen to need a job at the time, and they can help you. It's like we live rurally enough that if you go to the right Lowe's or Home Depot, there's some farmers' kids who are working there just because dad's like, you're going to have a fucking job.
Yep.
And they actually know. Like, they can tell you what the right hose is for the application that you're using, like where the stuff is in the store, the right type of stuff that you're going to need for, if you're in the garden section and you're not sure which fertilizer to get, they can point you in the right direction. Like, there's a handful of those at every store. So, you can usually find them, but you might have to ask around a bit to figure out which ones are the dumbasses and which one actually has some sense. But yeah, I mean, most big box stores are going to have the stuff that you're looking for this stuff, and it's not going to take you forever, and it's going to be quick and easy, and it's going to do the same thing. Like I said, unless you're doing this stuff with your son who's in Boy Scouts and you're trying to earn a badge or something, like most of this, there's a much simpler and much more practical solution than what these DIY videos will show you.
So guys, what was that thing? Little turbine that he throws in the water. So there has been on the internet for 20 years. It's a water wheel, right? And it's just some sheet metal stuck to the end of some rebar and painted, right? It's nothing fancy, but you take it, you drop the end of the wheel in the water, the wheel spins, you attach that to whatever generates power. There's plans for these things that are exactly that. There are plans for these things so that you can pick them up and rotate them out if you want. And the whole point of these things is, $100, and you've got a reasonable amount of power to deal with, because it'll pull enough torque out of that water. You got 6 inches of this steel or something in your flowing stream, then you got enough torque that you can, in fact, rotate an alternator, for example. And look, that alternator that you took out of your car that doesn't have enough power to power your car, if you're talking about putting a light pole in the middle of nowhere or something like that, it's going to be enough that you can do that and throw a 120 outlet in it. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can't power a 10 amp motor off it or anything, but it will have enough power for you to plug other things in there and do whatever you want within some sort of reason. There are guys that have been running real similar things and powering, the barn on the other side of their property that's next to the stream, right? Because they've got a huge battery bank from all the times they change their car batteries, and they keep the car batteries and just run them, in series, so that they've got a ton of power just hanging around. And this thing just sits and charges it, right? All day, all night. And so the 6 hours that they're actually in the barn, they've got power. These things are there. There are real plans that will really help you. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, these are not the places to find them.
Right. And like you were saying, these are guys that have been saving their battery every time they change a car battery. They've got this stuff sitting around. It's not stuff that they're going to Lowe's and Home Depot and spending $200-$300 on to build. Like, usually it's stuff that they're doing. It's like what Dag and I were talking about with the composting stuff last night. Like, don't go out and spend a ton of money to set up your composting bins and stuff. Like, use the shit that you've got on hand, or get some fucking 5-gallon buckets. Do something that's easy. Make it practical. Don't dump a fortune into doing this kind of stuff. It's not worth it.
It's funny because I was listening to that, and there was some, put your chickens to work. My compost pile is about 30-40 feet away from my chicken coop, so that I just let them out, and they go on free range and things. And some 10% of them at any given time are over there rotating my compost pile, because half of it is, in fact, they're chicken bedding anyhow. So, and these, now don't get me wrong. I've got a friend on the other side of the country. He rotates his compost pile with a $50,000 bulldozer. don't get me wrong. That guy's got the money to do it, but I've got a couple $100 worth of chickens that are rotating 3 times as much compost, and they're doing it effectively for free. And by the way, whenever they become drumsticks, they'll be slightly bigger, simply for that.
It's if I had a bulldozer, I would probably be putting some of my welding skills to use and making other uses of that than turning compost. But that's a
well,
for
he does
day.
other stuff with it too. He has a bulldozer for other reasons, mind you. But like, yeah, I gotta go turn the compost pile. Old 1950s dozer, because he didn't go buy a new one. He's got old, V8 or 12, diesel engine in there. The thing is, you want to talk about who's putting carbon into the atmosphere? It's just him and that dozer, right? All the rest of us are doing nothing.
But, there's some folks that have got one of those like down and around the corner, and it just sits out there by that, like they don't use it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like. If I had the time to put into tearing that thing down and getting it running, I would 100% be down there like, hey, how much y'all want for that?
Give me this thing. We're gonna do some stuff. putting welding and concrete setting skills to work, you say?
Yeah.
We'll call it the Liberty Dozer. Oh man. Yeah, ponds are a pain in the ass, man. I'm not gonna kid you. Though they're probably more of a pain in the ass for me than they are for you guys, right?
So you're in the wrong part of the world for ponds.
Yeah.
Hard to maintain that water content.
Yeah. So for a lot of you got decent soil, 6, 8, 10 feet down, whatever it is, and it will hold water. Though you'll probably leak some for a while. But you could dig out your hole and tamp it down real hard and sort of save yourself a little bit of that pain. I, on the other hand, have sand 3 feet down everywhere. So if I dig a pond, it better be 18 inches deep or less.
You're digging a wading pool.
Yeah, which, to be fair, at some point I am. I'm going to dig a pond for the ducks that I have. And indeed, it's going to be concrete coated on the bottom because it has to be. This is probably not a consideration for most of you. In the world of positive things that we should talk about, I have threatened, or rather been suggested to and threatened to record some of this shit and go over it. And maybe we'll do some of that here. Certainly, whenever it is that I get around to doing that sort of thing, I will put it in, I think Substacks is what it's going to be. And for those of you who don't like reading and would rather me just show up and talk on video and explain it to you, show you, pictures and videos of what it is, that is unironically exactly why it'll be a Substack. I have no interest in the people who watch the DIY videos that we tell you not to watch, coming and telling me how much easier it would have been if I just would have spent $8,000 to do what I did for $40. Just not excited about that.
So a teaser of things to come. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing more of these and talking about because as we dig into more stuff on the ways of the world and how some of this stuff works, how it actually works versus how the average dumbass thinks it works. I feel like we're going to get into more of that practical application type of stuff and talking about more things of like the things that people just don't get and how to make it work in everyday life. That the just, I don't know if it's a failure of our education system or what. Like every old farmer that I grew up around that are my dad's age or older knew how to do fucking everything. And then you look at like younger generations and they don't know how to do shit. Like they've been brought up, their entire education has been in a classroom as opposed to out in the world doing shit. And so there's things that have been lost. Like,
it's the Mike Rowe complaint, right? Go to college is not, how's that working out for you guys? You join that? Dear 20% of the country that is complaining I need to pay off their student loans because you can't get a fucking job. Is this working out for you? Because I feel like no. My gut says that it would have been substantially better for you to take the job with Caterpillar, where they pay you $15 an hour to go to training, during which time they give you room and board, and at the end of which they place you in a $30 to $60 an hour job. I feel like that probably would have worked out better for you.
And then you know how to actually work on shit and do shit. And also you're going to be around other people who know how to work on shit and do shit, that are going to teach you how to work on shit and do shit that the classes aren't even going to teach you. So now you're picking up other life skills on top of that. Yeah, there's huge. And I mean, there's a huge value in that shit. Spending probably the first 4 years of my, I got an ag business degree and went to work in the grain industry for a decade. And probably the first 4 years that I was doing that, I just went around with old maintenance men and learned how to fix shit in a grain elevator, and learned how to weld and grind and do all of that stuff. And that has been infinitely more valuable in my life than any of the 4 years of college.
So that goes to another thing. If there's an old guy on your street somewhere, dear suburban hell living weirdo, and that old guy has his garage door open on the weekends, and you don't know how to work with your hands at all, just go over and offer to help. Bring beer. All right. It's going to cost you a 12-pack of beer a weekend. That's going to be your tuition price for this guy to teach you how to work with your hands. Okay. Just show up, 6-pack of beer in hand. Hey man, what you doing? I promise you your reception will be good. All right.
And that's another one of those things that me and Dag talked about on the first episode of the Becoming Your Own Grocery series was, find the people that are near you that you can connect with and figure out who does what and who knows what and get in good with them. I've got a neighbor where we moved from that her dad reloads all of his own ammo.
Yeah.
I can get all I want just from him. Just all I got to do is bring him casings, and he'll hook me up. Knowing people who, and that is amazing. Everywhere that I've lived, there has been a person like that either in the neighborhood or was a close relative of one of the people in the neighborhood. And they're just like, oh yeah, you got a lot of guns. My dad or my uncle or my granddad or I reload. Yeah. You want anything? It's like, hell yeah.
Actually, yes.
So making connections, meeting those people, finding out what they know. So we've got a boat. I don't know if I've talked about my boat. My uncle had a boat and he decided he didn't want the boat anymore. And I told him I would take the boat. So my son and I are going to gut the interior, completely redo it. We're going to strip down the motor and get it all cleaned up and get it running. And then, as chance would have it, our neighbor back there has a paint shop right over here. And so whenever we get done doing everything with the boat, he said we can bring it over there and he'll teach my son how to paint and let him paint the boat. He's got a guy that helps him from time to time that also works on boats. He was like, oh yeah, I can help y'all out with the gutting and redoing the interior and stuff. He said it's real easy. And he was like, I can show you all some tricks and stuff to make just talk to people in your neighborhood. Right.
And because I know you're also concentrated on it, you know what the price of that is? Hey man, we're buying lunch and beer. That's right. The price. And because and by the way, this is the kind of thing that for most of my life has gotten me doing my own work. It started out when I got a car and I found out that mechanics wanted $80 an hour. And I took a look at my paycheck and I went, I make $12 an hour. So for this asshole to change my oil, I have to work a whole day. No. And that was pretty much the end of that. Better figure it out now because I'm not working a whole day to pay that asshole to change my oil. Fuck you. I know. Jiffy Lube, $35, whatever it is. Fine. brakes, rotors, all the same shit. By the way, things that you can solve with a, I don't know, probably 50 at this point dollar ratchet set that you pick up at AutoZone, right? 90% of the shit you need, that thing will do for you. You got to treat it gently because it's garbage. But hey, man, I carried one around in the trunk of my car for 10 years. Then I went and bought a nice set. But 10 years for, at the time, $20. Do stuff on the weekend when I didn't have anything better to do anyway, because, you know, I was young and stupid and I could have been out breaking the law and drinking or working on my own shit. Oh, and by the way, make no mistake, no small part of my rationalization for doing it this way is it's a lot of beer money. I'll tell you right now, it is.
And it's amazing if you just get to know your neighbors, how far that beer money will go when you can just be like, hey, you want to come over and help me with this? And they're like, well, what's in it for me? Like, got a
beer money.
Got an 18 pack. We'll split it. All right, let's do it. Like it's amazing how far that goes and how far those connections go. That's a big reason why I want to have more conversations like this year instead of talking about like serious politics and shit like that, is because making connections is going to be of infinite importance going forward. And we all need to figure out how to do that and how to do a lot of this shit for ourselves without doing it the dumbest way possible, like the videos would have you do it.
Yeah. So there's another thing, right? You could cut, and I shouldn't say this because it'll stop some of you from watching, but I'm going to say it anyway because you should hear it anyhow. You could probably cut everything that we will ever tell you that is a bad idea. You don't need to listen to us. You walk over to that guy that already knows how to work with his hands and you hand him that 6-pack of beer. And over the course of a couple of months, you're going to find out this is all a stupid ass idea. That, you know, yeah, there's definitely a better way to do that. Why would you even do it? Why are you wasting your time? It's a question this guy's going to ask you a lot. And look, if you got a baby back bitch, soft ass ego, and him asking you, what the fuck are you doing, is really going to bother you, then you need to get over that. I don't know what else to tell you because he's going to ask you. You may notice that lots of us are pretty free with that's stupid because it is, right? And you could decide that, you know, somebody should blow you to tell you that something is wrong or not. And none of us are going to deal with you. None of us care, right? You're sad and whiny and bitchy, and we don't have time for that. All right.
So get out and make some connections, meet some people, figure out how they do it, because they're probably going to be a lot better at doing it than any video you're going to find on Pinterest or TikTok or anywhere else. If it's taking them 3 minutes to show you all of the quick way to do it, I bet you they did it wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not going to last. Like,
so one of my favorite one of these ever is I was just an electrician for a little while when I was just barely an adult. And I picked up enough electrical knowledge, I'm sure, to be dangerous, but nonetheless, I wire plenty of stuff myself. And I'm watching somebody sends me one of these. And it's like, hey, Don, is this how you wire a box for the house? And I looked at it, and at a glance, yeah, it looks fine. And then I realized he had both bars wired together. Now, that doesn't mean anything to you, right? Your house, so that you can have a 220 or 240 line into your house, has two separate electrical inlets, right? And that's how you get that instead of 110, either 220, 110, 120. That's how you get 240, is you pull one off of each. And the guy down at the bottom had wired the two bars together. Now, look, I'm not even sure how bad that could go, but the only discussion to be had is how bad could this go?
Yeah, that's not going to be good. At minimum, you're getting a fire.
Yeah.
At minimum, you're getting a fire. If not something like actually blowing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, did all the breakers just turn into little frag grenades? Because, I mean, I guess that's possible given what you've done here.
Yeah, that is very possible. Fuck. Like I said, I had the electrician come out and do all this. I did I did most of the like really basic electrical work in our house, and I used to work on 440, and fuck that. I don't ever want to do that again. So like I had electrical certifications and shit in a former job. I was a project manager, so I had to. And like I said, I did minimal 440 work, a little bit more extensive on like 220, 240, and then like 110 is not shit. So like everything that I did in the house over there, like I did it all myself. It wasn't any big deal. The worst part of it was the original structure was built in like the 1890s, and then other parts were added on over the course of the next 60 years, and then electricity was just added in like haphazardly whenever that became a thing. So you might turn off a breaker that turned off this light switch, but the outlet that's literally right next to the light switch, it's on a completely different breaker. There's no reason that you would ever expect that until you shock yourself and realize, fuck, that hurts. Got to go figure out which breaker actually goes to that now, because it's not the one that would make sense. Like aside from some minor like pop myself, nothing big. It was all pretty straightforward. Running the box and putting the meter in and everything. My wife was like, "Oh, you can do that, can't you?" I was like, not gonna.
Yeah,
like,
want to.
Right. It's like doing brakes on my truck or on her car. Like, don't want to. I hate brakes. Brakes are the one thing that I will gladly pay somebody else to do brakes all day, every day. I hate fucking brakes. Same with wiring certain stuff up. Can do it, not gonna. I enjoy life a little bit too much, and so I hire a professional to do some of that stuff. It's do it yourself electrical work. Just let's avoid that. That's not smart.
So feel free to do all the electrical work you want, low voltage. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, you got 12 volt DC, have at it. You do whatever you want, right? The consequences of miswiring 12 volt DC are basically zero. You might start the world's tiniest electrical fire. And by that, I mean, it's going to look, about like this. But if you don't know how electricity works, stay away from your walls. That's all I'm saying.
Try not to put an open palm towards any open wires. Try to keep. If you don't understand how electricity works, it makes everything contract. So if you hit it with an open palm, everything's happening up, and that fucking sucks. Like 110, you can get off of it, but it's not going to feel real good. So try not to let the open part of your hand hit any exposed wires.
Stay away from 240/40. Okay,
right. Don't
touch
it. Dead. You don't walk away from that.
But it's so in the world of my own problems with this sort of thing. My well is on a separate box to the main box of my house, right? And I getting some digging done around here, cut the power line to the well. Okay, flip breaker, figure out which breaker it is. We'll just, just deal with this, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Got to rerun some wire, reconnect some line. Fine. Not the end of the world. Come to find out that the breaker that it is on is not exactly a breaker. It looks like just a switch. And so it is more than happy to transmit some power down a 240 line, even when it's off, because it's not a breaker. And on top of that, I can't disconnect it from the main box because the top breaker in the panel, the wire for it just goes up here. And so I end up needing to replace the breaker box because the cable had torn it. And so I got all of the joy of calling up my power company to disconnect the entire system so that I could replace one breaker box. So For all of you who are going to do your own electrical work, and then eventually somebody like me is going to have to come back and have some otherwise mild problem, and then find out that to replace a box that should be a sub panel and wired in some reasonable fashion, what I actually have to do is call my power company to pull my meter so that I can replace the breaker box. Please just don't. Just hire some. I know it's cheaper, and you called the power company so you could spindle the wire around the main line coming down anyway, so that you could have 240. Thank you very much. But also other options are available. Please take them.
There are some things that if you don't know how to do it right, have somebody else do it for you, because the problems that you're going to create down the as plumbing is one of those things. Like if you're planning on doing your own plumbing, but you don't know shit about plumbing, just fucking don't. Because then somebody like me is going to come behind you later and realize that you just you piped all of this shit in ass backwards, and now I've got to take all of it out and redo all of it because nothing works right. Understand your limitations. I think is you can watch every do-it-yourself video on the planet, even the good ones that actually show you the right way to do it. But if you don't know how to do it, there's some.
Make no mistake, I'm going to push back a little on you, right? So start small.
Okay? Yes, that's it.
That's the pushback here. Because look, if you're gonna go plumb your whole house, right, and you don't know shit about plumbing, you're going to end up waist deep in shit. Like literally. Right? Don't do that. That's a problem. On the other hand, if you're gonna go plumb the drain from the side of your house out to I don't know, the alleyway or whatever to get rid of some water, good. Start there. Learn that things like 1/8 are going to be the guiding principle of your life, so you don't have sitting pools of water all over the damn place. Good. That's exactly the place to go try this. Screw it up, because the consequences are basically zero. Put in some sweat to find out that had you known what you were doing, this would have been much easier. And now you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And you didn't end up standing knee deep in human sewage to learn this lesson. Okay. Go put in your sprinkler system yourself. Okay. Fine. The worst case scenario is most likely that your lawn doesn't get watered. I guess, to be fair, I have a friend whose sprinkler system broke and flooded his freaking front lawn with like 20,000 gallons of water in a month. So there are, in fact, worse things that can happen. But even then, right, this is the worst of the worst case scenarios of what can go on here. Fine. These things, not great. I promise you, he did not enjoy the water bill for that month. On the other hand, that is better than, I'll just, plumb all the toilets in the house, or, I'll plumb the sink, but I'll connect it wrong. I won't cinch it down, any number of things. And then now your house is full of black mold, right? Start small and build from there. It's, yes, a lot of this stuff, at least for me, and I'm sure basically everybody else who works with their hands, intrinsically makes sense, right? Like you watch somebody do something that it even is ridiculous and go well, here's the good way to do that, right? And that will come in time. And if you don't have it already, then the way to do it is, in fact, start small. You want to drip line, and for some reason, and there are a few, your standard drip line out of Lowe's and Home Depot, that nice little black pipe, is just not good for you. Okay, go get your 1-inch PVC and sit there and drill your holes one at a time all the way down. You'll have a drip line, right? It will do the job. It won't be particularly difficult, and it also won't be amazing. Make no mistake. You'll learn very quickly that you should have put two, one on each side, and it should have, behaved a little bit better. It'd be even better if you put valves on there. But now you're talking about getting expensive. It's not just a 1-inch PVC drip line, right? You might find out that it'd be a better idea to put a 5-gallon bucket at the end with a float in it, just so your water pressure is not 70 psi, so you're not blowing giant holes in your garden. Fine. Learn all of these things and feel free to do it the hard way. I encourage you to do so, right? Because what is the cost of what I just said, right? Oh, but I ran 70 psi at lightsaber size through my garden. Cool. Get out your shovel, level it back out, and then go put a float in a 5-gallon bucket at the end, right? That way, now you have, 8 psi, right? So it's going to come out of there like a drip line instead of like a rocket. Good. You learned a lot. You learned about water pressure. You learned about plumbing. You learned about any number of things, right? Good. And you should. Those kinds of mistakes are going to happen, and they don't matter at all if you're running a drip line for a garden, right? They do matter if, that is the water pipe to your shower, right? Or the main water line into your house. Because, by the way, if you bust that thing, it's going to be fun. All right. And when I say fun, I mean super not fun.
Yeah, the one that hooks up your dishwasher that you're running twice a week. I think that was the big one that pissed me off. Was the dishwasher was completely plumbed in ass backwards, and then when the dishwasher stopped working and had to be replaced, everything had to be torn out and completely redone. Like, so that was what it was like. Oh my God, why would you do this? Why would you ever do this? So yeah,
what have you done to me and why?
Start small, learn how shit works before you pipe in major appliances and stuff like that. And
by the way, this is the same point with the electrical, right? The mistakes you can make with 12 volt 1 amp, right? Which is most of your small electronic type stuff, right? It doesn't matter what you do. You could stick that to your tongue. It's not going to be comfortable, but you could do it. And you're going to live. Right, unless you have a pacemaker or something, maybe not that. But
you got a heart
for all the rest of you,
maybe don't.
Right, but for all the rest of you, this is not going to kill you. It will very uncomfortably inform you when you're doing something wrong, and being uncomfortably informed is one thing. Having 240/40 run through your body is going to turn you into fucking pink mist. The consequences of that mistake are massive. To the welding discussion. Right. Relatively small welds, don't weld your, the frame of your vehicle. Right. Do not make that your first weld. Okay. It's not that you can't do it. The government doesn't like it if you do it, but it's not that it is impossible. But you probably shouldn't have your life at 80 miles an hour dependent on the first weld you ever made. Okay. Just throwing that out there.
And as I said with Dag's show, with the episode with Dag last night on the, building your own grocery or becoming your own grocery thing, like with this sort of do-it-yourself stuff and figuring out like how to do this stuff. If you don't have a neighbor handy, you can send me or Don a message. And I don't know about for everybody else. Don responds fairly quickly to me, so he might respond to you as well. I respond to everybody, even if you're sending me hate mail, so feel free. I love it. I'm a huge attention whore. I will talk to anybody and everybody, as is evidenced by some of the episodes I've done of this show. I will literally talk to anybody and everybody. So yeah, if you've got questions about this stuff, like feel free to reach out and be like, hey, I'm tinkering with something. What do you think about this? And we'll give you an honest opinion. And if you're doing something that's fucking stupid, we'll tell you, hey, that's kind of fucking stupid. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Or maybe you should consult a professional who's closer by to assist with that, or something. But if you got questions about stuff, hit us up, because like I said, like the goal of a lot of this stuff this year is to try to teach and talk and connect and get people moving in the right direction to just be better at this life shit. I think 2020, people started getting out and wanting to start doing shit more because, you couldn't go to work or do anything else. And some of that is carried over. And some of that is carried over in some of the worst ways, where people are now doing shit that they really shouldn't be doing. So let's talk about how we can do things the right way and actually build something, not just build something for ourselves, but, build some life skills and be better stewards of our communities. Don, you got anything else?
Yeah, to caveat on that entirely, and why exactly it is that I'm thinking about making things like the Substack. Look, I do not have $20 million to build all of the things that are in my head, right? On the other hand, lots of you will probably find these things useful, and you will probably get to building them before I do. And for those of you who don't know, right, in this moment, I will be fulfilling the job of the engineer, and so your job is to hate me. All right, I promise you that is the case. Every engineer that you have ever met, when you try to practically apply the things they want to do, the first thing that you ask yourself is, what retard designed this thing, right? And for you, I will be that retard. Okay. So all of us can go out and start working on these various things, right? And go, hey, so like I built this thing, but like also this was super dumb. So I just put a valve right here and it solves all the problems, right? Because you're never going to know that until you build it, right? And some engineer is going to hear that and go, well, if you just did the math, you'd know. Like, well, look, bitch, you do the math and I see what you produce. All right.
We're going to have a conversation about the engineers after this ends, because I've got, as a former project manager who actually worked in the maintenance side of stuff and knew how the shit worked, and then getting to deal with engineers, I've got some fun engineer stories. So you and I will talk about that after we end. And for everybody else, that'll be on the subscriber only on Locals, or maybe not. I haven't put anything on Locals in a while. Maybe I will do some subscriber only stories on Locals of my fun experiences with engineers and stuff as a connection to this. But in the meantime, hope everybody has a great night, great rest of your week. I will be back next Tuesday with Forest Mommy, fresh off of her run for council in I think it was a run for city council in Colorado. We're going to be talking about burnout. She's experiencing some burnout on the back end of that, which is very understandable. Part of the reason that I've changed directions and I'm doing this kind of stuff this year is because I really hit kind of a wall on and got some like political burnout on the shit that I spent most of the last 3 years talking about. So we're going to talk about dealing with burnout. So that'll be next Tuesday night, same bat time, same bat channel. And in the meantime, hope you all have a great rest of your week. Catch you later.